Welcome, Amanda. Super glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, intro is great. I just sold my company last year. I went on to go take a VP of marketing role for about a year and then decided to take the full-time leap into being a content creator while I juggle kind of fractional CMO clients.
Super cool. You started this, first kind of regular format that you started that I'm aware of, at least, is your newsletter, Life's a Game. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what's the intention? What's your goal behind it? And yeah.
Yeah, I care very deeply about people achieving success, but not at all costs. And I think that there's a lot of content out there that only focuses on the first part, which is the success part. And I believe that that kind of gives you a false sense of what success is. Like, yes, you can make a lot of money or you can have a lot of followers, but if you're doing it at the expense of your mental health, your physical health, your relationships with your family, all the things. I think that that's not necessarily a definition of success that most people at the end of their life would be proud of. So I believe that you can have a ton of drive, huge goals in your life, and achieve them by working smarter, not harder. And so Life's a Game is both the internal work paired with the external stuff that you need to do to succeed. And I think so many people hit friction points or blockers because of the lack of guidance on the internal work that needs to happen to achieve success.
I think most of us can relate to that kind of constant struggle to try to balance, whether it's personal life with family, whether it's ambitions around sports, friends, etc., and professional life. So I think one of the questions we've gotten beforehand was kind of tell us about like tools and frameworks you use. But maybe before we even dive into that, and I've just downloaded the guide that you have also been flipping through it. So I know there's not one framework to it, but what's your guiding principle maybe behind kind of how do you approach that challenge?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of productivity blogs really guide you into a very wrong direction. And so for me, I have a very simple framework that I think about. I think of, am I on offense or am I on defense? Offense means that I have the ball. I was an athlete my whole life. I was a basketball player. Offense is I have the ball. I'm pushing my projects that are aligned with my goals and my success. I'm pushing those forward. Defense is other people's goals. They need something from me and I'm moving their stuff forward. So like, let's put this into tactical examples. Offense is creating a strategy deck. It's writing that investor email. It's sending out, creating a content strategy, whatever it is that's like pushing your goals forward. Defense is Slack, email, responding to people. Anytime you're on the defense, you're responding to people. And I am very, very boundaried on my offensive time versus my defensive time. So that's kind of framework number one. And then to add to that, to-do lists, like super long to-do lists, have kind of this false sense of productivity. You sit there, you write out all these things that you need to get done. One, that in and of itself feels like a great thing to do. But then two, what's the thing you do first? It's usually the thing that you can do the fastest and easiest because we all crave this dopamine of like, done. I got something done with my checklist, right? And for me, that's totally fine to have a backlog. Like you think of something, you want to write it down because you want to get it out of your brain. That's fine. That's your backlog. It's not your to-do list. And so the way I've reframed this in my head is every day I have 3 hours of offense time. And 3 hours of offense time, meaning I don't look at email, I have no meetings, I don't open Slack, I'm not on social media. that 2 to 3 hours is worth somebody else's like 6 hours of context switching and jumping around. And so by holding that offensive time sacred and really boundarying it, it allows me to do most of my work that it would have taken me a day in an office when I was working, with a huge team and having people need stuff from me. That would space out to about 8 to 10 hours a day. I can now get it done in 2 because I do it and I block that. And then the second thing of this is every night when I'm going to log off, which I'm usually done work by like 3:34 because I want to go to the gym before I go get my kids. So at 3:30 or 4, I create what I call a to-do list, literally the number 2. And that is 2 things that are huge projects that I need to, like, I can literally show you. Like I have course strategy and I needed to write a welcome email. So I needed to create a strategy deck and then I needed to write this welcome email. And those are 2 things that I wanted to get done in my focus time. That because I didn't have this long list, I just got those done this morning in about 90 minutes. And then I could use the rest of the 30-minute time block to do something else. But if you only have 2 things to do a day and they're big projects, you will be blown away at how much work you get done every single week and how quickly you move towards your goals because you're constantly boundarying your offense time and focusing on the true 20% of work that gets 80% of the results.
And Rushan, thank you for dropping a question. I just wanted to encourage everyone, please drop questions as they come, but feel free. We are a small enough group today that we can actually just speak directly. So Rushan, feel free to just ask the question.
Oh, cool. So Amanda, is the to-do list the stuff that you actually do in the offensive time, or is it?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So so another part of offense and defense is understanding your own biological clock and how you function, your actual energy flow throughout the day. And so I hate the word biohacking because it sounds very tech bro-y, but what I mean by it is I've done a lot of different tests to get curious about when my energy state and my flow state can be hit the fastest. And I've just learned over time that the mornings for me, my cortisol levels are 2 times as high. I can hit flow state the fastest. And so I block off 5:30 to 7:30 every single morning. That is my offense time. Now, every time I say this to somebody, they're like, great, I have to be a morning person. No, I know many people who their offense time is 8 to 10 p.m., 9 to 11 p.m. You have to know your body's rhythm. Some people do it, in the middle of the day, 11 to 1, and they block that off and they can crank during that time. But my point is understanding when you can block off that time and when you naturally have that energy state. I have a ton of energy when I wake up in the morning, so that it just works. And then I only focus on those 2 things. And to me, the feeling of knocking out 2 massive things, like this morning, getting that strategy deck done, great. Now I sent that off to the people that needed it, and I can move on to the next thing tomorrow. And if you move something big forward every single day, it's really incredible how much you can get done. Because we're so distracted. There is so much, if you look at your day and now that you have these offense versus defense frameworks, it's really fascinating to see how much is actually stealing from your offense time. And that's really emails are not work. Slack is not work. Sitting in meetings is not work. Yes, you're gathering information, but to do the work, you have to block out time. And I think that that's a really hard thing for people with so much access, and especially in a remote culture, which I feel the number of meetings are starting to increase in a remote work culture. So figuring out how you time box those things. So I hold that time sacred. No one's allowed. If somebody tries to schedule a meeting during my offense time, it's out. I decline it. And then the second piece is I time box my meeting time too. So for me as a creator, I can be in control of my meeting time. I have a Calendly system. And so every day from 10 to 1 is when I take meetings. Okay, I'm done with my big offense time. Now I can be on defense. I also block out when I'm on social media. So I have 8 to 9, 12 to 1, 4 to 5 is when I like have blocked it off in my calendar that is when I go on social media and engage with content, because I've already scheduled all my content. I do that on Sundays. So anybody who follows me on Twitter, like none of that stuff is happening like in real time anymore. Once I hit about 100,000 followers, I was like, I have got to create a system for this, because this is just too big for me to just be like on the way to the bathroom sending a tweet. Like I need to be a little bit more thoughtful about this. And I've also just found that like I can now get into this state of creativity. And once I'm in that state of doing like a tweet, you just get the rhythm down and I can crank out a week's worth of content in about 2 hours, both Twitter and LinkedIn. And then all I have to do throughout the week is just jump in and engage with people. So I say all of this, and I know it's probably like hard to like think through my calendar in this way, but everything is about intention with your time, like blocking off time and actually sticking to those boundaries of when are you on offense? When are you on defense? How do you block out that time in your calendar? And then how do you like actually abide by those boundaries?
So this is a great question, because I think one of the submitted questions we got beforehand is like, how do you actually protect? Because I'm sure everyone here once or twice tried to do this.
Yeah.
I'm certain. And then some of us may have succeeded and some of us may have failed, like me. Yeah, tell us about kind of how do you say no to things in a way that like clearly sticks for you after like a long period of time now?
Yeah, I'll say first, it's a lot easier the more senior you get into your career, right? I led a team of 50 people at the Knot, and I had 3 kids under the age of 4. And this was when we were in the office. And so I left work every day at 4. And this was pre-COVID. So this was like unheard of. Everybody's like, you're leaving in New York City at 4 o'clock. Like this is unheard of. Like you're horrible, all these things, right? And I remember my boss was very supportive. She was a mom. She understood it. But I remember other people started to talk. And so I had a conversation with her and I was like, listen, am I getting my work done? Am I available when you need me? If those two are like you can reach me in a reasonable amount of time. And if it's an emergency, my phone is on me. But like, if those 2 things are true, why does it matter that I'm leaving at 4? And what I found and what I continue to find when I tell other people to do this is the second you bend once, consider the boundary gone. Because once people know that like, oh, she blocked out lunch. I know she's taken a call over lunch before. Once you bend it once, people don't respect it. And so you have to hold that firm. And look, yes, there's going to be things that are like fire drills, like something is broken and you need to move it. But like, get used to saying, unfortunately, I've blocked out that time. Here are the times I'm available. And 9 times out of 10, people respect that when you provide an alternative. And it's like, yeah, I'm not available at that time, but here are 3 other times I can do this. So I think this is like where the internal work comes in, which is what part of you feels guilty for holding that boundary, and where is it coming from? Who in your life is telling you subconsciously that you're not being what you should be by taking that meeting or being on call 24/7, by not going 110%. Like, that's kind of that internal work that you've got to get a little curious about, of like, okay, where's that actually coming from? Is it society? Is it my parents? Is it my grandparents? Is it like culturally? Like, where is it coming from that I feel like I have to put other people's emergencies and needs before my stuff?
Got it. I was really curious, and I'm gonna slice this in and just encourage everyone else one more time to either raise your hand or drop your question in the chat so we can queue you up. I'm gonna be a little bit selfish and ask my own question. Oftentimes I sacrifice my own like focus blocks because I'm not clear on what is the most important thing, that like there's too many big projects. The backlog is too big. I know this is a separate topic, like prioritization, right? But I'm really curious about how do you pragmatically go about it? Because I'm sure you're not like holding 3 days offsites with yourself where you're like approaching some scoring and whatever, but like, how do you stay on top of what is it that you can do on a daily basis? What goes into these like two slots or into the two important to-dos? How do you keep on top of that?
Yeah, so similarly to the to-do list, every month I have, what is the project I'm working on this month? Like 3 months ago, it was, I'm going to launch a newsletter. Or 4 months ago now, I'm going to launch a newsletter. Okay, that is this month's priority. So every morning, what is the big thing I need to move forward? Okay, I need to get ConvertKit set up. Okay, I need to schedule 3 calls with other people with newsletters. I need to like create a template. Okay, now I need to create a content strategy. I need to create the marketing plan. Like, what are the big things? And now I'm chipping away at this one focus thing. Like right now, I'm launching like courses. Okay, so I have a very distinct goal. By Thanksgiving, I need to have 3 courses outlined. Well, that's a big, like blurry thing. Now I start to strip away at that. And so it all starts with, and I love it or hate it, like I love OKRs. I think you create a big aspirational objective and then you follow it up with quantitative milestones. So great. I want to launch digital courses in 2024. Okay, that's the objective. Key results are I need to have 3 courses outlined by Thanksgiving, 3 courses recorded by Christmas, and launched in January. Great. I now have these milestones that I'm working towards. Now all the tactics and things I need to do start to become the to-dos. But what I find is, and I see this because in my office hours, I had everybody do an OKR exercise. And I did it before I talked about OKRs. I gave them the high level primer. I said, create your OKRs. People had like 8 objectives. They were like, well, I'm going to create a newsletter, and then I'm going to start video production every single day. And it was like huge things. And I'm like, okay, I saw this like repeatedly, and I'm like, pick 2. If you have to prioritize 2, you're going to fail at all of these because you're going to look at this long list of things you want to do, and it's going to paralyze you. You're going to just stop because you've set yourself up for failure. The same thing goes for just like even health and wellness goals. Saying I'm going to like lose 10 pounds or whatever, this like big lofty goal. It's like, no, that is not the tactical way to approach this. You want to say, I'm going to like hit 10,000 steps. I'm going to, join a class 2 times a week. Like, it's all about the framing of the goal in your mind of like what you're trying to do, and not making it this unreasonable set of objectives, especially as founders. Like, I've been a founder twice. Like, I know what the backlog looks like. You're like, I have to redo the website. We have a supply chain issue. I have, I have to go fundraise. Like, there's so much happening. The way I would do it in the startup world is what is now a month for me was a week. So it's like this week And what I would do every Monday morning to my team, I'd say, hey guys, this week my head is on supply chain. My to-dos are all about supply chain. Every morning I'm waking up and I'm going to make a deck around like, why are our shipping costs at the like levels that they're at? Do we need to do a new shipping cost strategy? Like, and then my team that focused on supply chain knew they were kind of on the hot seat that week, and that all of my meetings would be around that topic. And so if then like, you know, social team would be like, whew, we're not on the hot seat this week. But what I found is when I made something the topic of the week, I would move it so much faster like further in a week than I would have if I chipped away a little bit in a day. So it's all about like focusing. And my old sales VP of sales at the Knot used to say, focus and finish. Just focus on one thing and finish it. Take it as far as you can, and then move to the next thing. Because right now, so many people are pulled in so many different directions. And how like defeating does it feel when you're just moving something like 3 steps at a time and you have 30 things that are going like inch by inch? It feels so good when you're like, you know, sprinting to a finish line, you get something to a check mark, you say, great, I feel pretty good about where that's at now. Let me move to this other thing.
I can relate to the 8 things. Anthony, go ahead and ask. Good, actually.
Hey, Amanda. I think the inner work thing is super, super interesting, because I think from like personal experience, and I guess we all experience it to a degree, but like it sometimes is like to really nip it in the butt, like you got to get through the limiting beliefs, and to get through the limiting beliefs, you need something somewhere to show you what those are. And if you don't have time to do the work, you definitely don't have time for the like inner stuff. So just curious, maybe from your experience, what that inner work, I think I said internal, I meant, oh no, that was Oriana, sorry, it was inner work. What that inner work like looks like. Is it talking with peers? Is it coaching? I'm sure it's different for everyone, but then also maybe there's like an example that you can share where maybe you've seen it in someone else or in yourself, where like it was that thing that was preventing me from getting from 8 to 2, or, you know, I'm trying to reduce it to the tangible, but like this, I think is really hard stuff, right? It takes a lot of time, a lifetime, I guess.
Yeah, think about it. I turned 38 next weekend. So I started really getting serious about the internal work. Really, when I became a very young VP at the Knot, I was the youngest vice president, had a massive team under me. I managed a lot of people that were older than me. And I realized at that point, I was like, oh, I am struggling to step into this leadership role because of a lot of limiting beliefs. I'm younger than these people. How can I tell them what to do? And that's when I started like really thinking about therapy and coaching. And I think that there's a little bit of like nuance to both of those things. And so for anybody if you guys are like, we know about this, like move on, just ping, I won't be offended. But so therapy, there's 2 types of therapy. There's talk therapy. I'm going to break it more simply, because I think it's kind of blurry, but for me, there's 2 camps. There's talk therapy and there's CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. And talk therapy is a little bit more Freudian in that, like, what does your childhood and what happened in your childhood and your relationship with your childhood, how is that creating a subconscious that's actually in the driver's seat right now? Okay. So like, to get very tangible, many high performers, their superpower is stemmed from the need to perform to earn love. Like, they had this belief that, well, if I just am the best at this thing, that's how I get love and attention from the important people in my life. And so kind of unfolding that and really peeling away, that's still a part of me and anybody that that relates to, but it's now not in the driver's seat. I now understand where it comes from. And my therapist now, she's CBT, which I'll talk about in a second. She has this very amazing analogy that I've written about in my newsletter, but it's called Who's Driving the Bus? So if you picture all these different ages of you on a school bus, there's 3-year-old you, there's 7-year-old you, there's teenager you, there's college you, they're all in the back seats of this bus. And at any time, you as an adult with logic and reasoning operating out of your frontal lobe, is driving the bus. But when we are triggered by something, meaning something feels familiar from our past, it will kickstart one of those people to come up and take over and grab the steering wheel, and they're going to drive it to Anxietyville or wherever, And so she always talks about when you feel worked up about something, who's driving the bus? Is it actually adult you, or is it someone, a younger version of you? So, okay, so talk therapy is all about understanding that stuff. Now if any of you are in relationships, and honestly, I love this app for myself just personally. So I worked on an app called Lasting. It got acquired by Talkspace, and it's a relationship health app, but it was formed by this guy, Steve Dzik. I helped do the marketing and stuff, but the content, he went and studied at Gottman Institute, which if anybody knows Gottman, it's the leading institute for relationship health. He studied there for 6 months and made this app. And it's amazing because it's called Lasting, and it's a relationship health. It's proactive relationship health. So if you can't go to a therapist and talk therapist, this app, I think, is a really good starting point, because it'll ask you questions about how were you shown love as a kid? How were you shown anger as a kid? And you start to realize some of your programming, we all have a program that we've been given, might have a few bugs in it because of how you were raised. And that's okay. We all have bugs in our programming, but it's just about figuring out then, once you're aware of it, okay, what do I need to do now to reprogram my software? So that's talk therapy. Now, CBT, and so I did talk therapy for many years, and that was so powerful just to understand this subconscious shadow work stuff. Then I moved to CBT because I was great, I now know where my shit comes from, but I'm still repeating unhealthy patterns. And so that's where CBT kind of comes in, where these are actually, it's tools focused. So if you ever saw the Stutz Netflix documentary, it was what's his toes, Jonah Hill's therapist. And so if you watch that, he's a CBT therapist. He's writing down tools and visualization exercises and saying here's what to do when you feel this way. It's less about the why something is happening and more about the what do you do with it. So that's CBT. And now coaching is really kind of a mixture of these things, but coaching is very blurry. And I think that, look, there's a lot, kind of joke right now is that there's so many life coaches that are 23 on the internet. But coaching, I found a coach through Chief, which was Chief Women's Network. I would go to a network that they're bringing in coaches. So our coach was a Harvard trained business coach, and she trained, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And what she would do is there were elements of CBT, it would talk a little bit about where something's coming from and what to do with it. But it was very much okay, what is my leadership style? What kind of CEO am I going to be? What's blocking me from being that? And so it was really about executive coaching and becoming the best leader I could be. So I don't know if that was helpful to break them down into those three. I'm happy to answer more questions.
Super
Super
helpful. Oriana actually had a related one. Do you want to go ahead, Oriana?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, like, around this internal work, going from like a leadership role to being a content creator, what area did you have to work on? Because I'm guessing it was quite different.
Yeah, imposter syndrome for sure. I think when you step out of your comfort zone, look, like I've been a marketer my whole life. I've been in leadership roles for the last 10 years. Like I feel I'm so comfortable being in the safety net of a corporation. Stepping outside of that and being a content creator, there's a lot of fear-based programming I had to unlearn, which is, am I operating out of a place of fear or abundance? And changing my reframe, because fear is like, I've got to do this thing or else I'm not gonna like be able to pay my bills and, you know, put food on the table for my kids. Abundance is, I have no boundaries. Like I am unleashed now. I am going to go make so much money. And it's just a reframe in my own mind, but like that's been work that I've had to do of operating out of a place of fear, which shrinks you, versus abundance, which expands you. And the second thing is just imposter syndrome, which I think is just like a buzzword that we all throw around, but it's really like giving myself permission to take up space online in a way that I haven't done before. And for me, that is monetization. Like I give content out like it's candy at Halloween. Like I love helping people and using everything that I've experienced in my life to create content about that. There was something that was blocking me from, I felt bad figuring out how to make money off of that. If I felt like I was creating friction and not helping people or not making it as accessible to help people. And so for me, the work I had to do with that was I needed to like surround myself with people who have no problems making money online and just absorb them, like literally be like, why do they feel this way and I don't? And the second thing was it's a muscle. You just have to keep pushing yourself to keep showing up and doing the thing you're uncomfortable with. And then lastly, I set out a thing that was like, these are the 3 things I'm going to do every month to give back and make sure that I still feel like my mission is being moved forward. So it's like, I will pick like one. I get a lot of DMs being like, hey, can I talk to you about my career? Can I talk to you about this thing? And it's like, I will do one of those a month or one of those a week and make sure that I'm still doing some free things that make me feel like I'm serving that purpose.
Ryan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks for sharing everything so far. I want to go back to the bus analogy, thinking about the adult, child, teenager, something else. When the child or the teenager takes over, what CBD strategies or what strategies did you deploy to navigate the situations to take back control? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to share 2 things. One is kind of deep, so I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm going to go there. We're going to okay. So one of the things my therapist had me do one day, and it was really powerful. I wrote about this last week, actually, in the newsletter. She had me like close my eyes and picture that version of myself. And so for me, it was like 6-year-old Amanda, right? And she's like, well, what is she doing? Picture her. And I was like, she's playing, she's outside, she's at my parents' house. Like I can picture everything from my parents' yard. And she's like, okay, walk up to her, say hi. And like, so in your mind, you like walk up to them, you say hi, you just are just trying to be friendly with them. And I know this sounds really woo-woo, but just stay with me. But so then you ask them what they need. Like, what do you need right now? And for me, 6-year-old Amanda was like, I just want someone to play with me. I grew up in a very rural area and I was by myself a lot. And so when I heard her say that to me, I was like, oh, I operate a lot of my life out of a fear of being alone. And so what does that actually, how does that show up in my relationship patterns, in my, like, even how I show up on social media? Like, how is that? And so kind of checking in with that version of yourself and really kind of letting yourself talk to them and see what they need. So that's like kind of the deeper work. Now, the tactical thing is when you recognize that someone took over your bus, you stop and you have to first like be aware of it. So it's like, I am feeling so angry right now and I don't know why. Like, that can happen sometimes. Or I'm feeling incredibly uncomfortable or incredibly anxious about something. Why is this happening? So becoming aware. And then the second tool is distract yourself. And so figuring out how you can almost distract that person that's driving. And so one of the tools she gives me that I use most often when it's like a real emotional response is like getting out of your, they call it your lizard brain, but the one that's in fight or flight, which we usually aren't needing to be in fight or flight. Your lizard brain, the best way to deactivate it is hot or cold. So you go and either drink something extremely hot or extremely cold, or you rub, like put cold water on your wrists or like whatever. But like, how can you almost distract yourself? And then, so it's like awareness, distraction, and then redirection and saying like, okay, I'm totally okay. I know, hey, 6-year-old Amanda, I know you are scared to be alone right now, but you know what? You don't need to text that person back. You don't need to like keep your boundary, hold your boundary. They've crossed something. They don't get access to you right now. And for me, like as becoming a content creator, this is really showing up in like when someone like a troll or even someone like just doesn't like my content or they feel offended by something or whatever. Obviously if they feel offended, I DM them and make sure I'm not doing anything wrong, but like it's a tough place. And so making sure that like my fear of being alone doesn't show up in this like, oh, I have to get everybody to like me. I don't.
Super.
Thank
Yeah, I think it's super powerful, and the 3 steps is also really good. I definitely knew about like the awareness part, but the hot and cold thing is new to me. So thank you for sharing so many tools. Time flies, so just one more call for everyone to think through any other questions you might have for Amanda. We have a few more minutes. I'm gonna pick 2 that we had submitted beforehand, actually, which I think are really interested because you are a mom of 3. So there were 2 around that. One was how do you overcome mom guilt when kind of trying to push your professional agenda? And the other one was how do you set up the required support you need, like childcare and like hiring help, when to decide how to think about that. I know that Naval Ravikant has this like mental model around like set an hourly rate, think about, is it worth your time doing it right now? Like, do you have something like that or something else?
Yeah, but that also assumes you have a financial safety net, which like for me, like I'm not in that kind of position. And so I come from this at a very different angle. I think a lot of people that are like shit's expensive, like childcare is expensive. And so I definitely, let me answer the first one first. Mom guilt. Everything around managing relationships, and this goes beyond just parenting. I mean, I got a divorce like for a very similar reason of that the 2 ambitious people didn't make time, didn't cultivate and pour it back into the relationship. So when you're thinking about relationships beyond your work, it's so easy for work to just bleed into everything else. So similarly to what we talked about at the very beginning, which is like holding your boundaries firm, I have this firm belief that I would rather be a focused, present mom 2 hours of the day than a distracted, chaotic, frenetic, energied mom 4 hours of the day. And I can assure you, like, I have 3 kids. I got divorced when they were 4, 2, and 0. They are now 10, 8, 6. They're all incredible kids. They feel like they get my attention for 2 hours of the day. And so for me, that's like, I get them from school at 5, and then from like 5:30 to 7:30, nothing else happens besides me being a mom. That is me playing. And I want to share one other tool is honoring the transitions. When you're a high performing person, this is something I didn't learn until later. And I think that it now helps me now in my like now relationship. It's this idea of when I'm on and I am working, I am in this like intense mindset. And I think many people can relate to that. You are on, you are firing, you are like almost in this like aggressive, assertive like mode. And it's hard to transition into this like immediate, like I cannot go from work mode to mom mode. Like that is 2 very different sides of my brain and energy space. I cannot go from mom mode to girlfriend mode. I cannot go from work mode to girlfriend mode. So understanding that you have to allow yourself space to transition, that's number 1. And then I have a ritual for transitioning from all these different roles in my life. And it's every time I need to go from like work mode to mom mode, I have this thing called a commute bath where I go, I play the same music, I take a bath, I allow myself to scroll TikTok or whatever, but that's my time to basically become a mom. I need to come out of there. And then from that point, I don't look at work. I go pick up my kids. I'm in a playful mode. We dance, we play. But so my point is, I'm saying all this to say, 1, being intentional about what mode you're in at that time and blocking for that mode. So if you're going to go on a date or be with your partner, or you're saying I'm sitting down, like, what is the thing that pulls you out of that mode? Your phone, Slack messages, emails. I can promise you, I'm like gone through a lot of experiences. I would rather have my partner be completely present with me for 1 hour than sitting there in and out distracted for like 2. So quality over quantity is the best thing that has helped me with all types of guilt, because when I'm present doing something, I give it 100%. And then when I move to the next thing, I don't feel guilty because I gave that last person 100%.
Makes a lot of sense as well, I think. And as you were speaking, I was reflecting a lot, probably some of you as well, on like how much I live up to it and on a daily basis. And on the support systems though, like how did you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's, if you have young kids, it's survival of the fittest for a little bit when they're little. Now my kids are older, and so I don't have any support system because they're either with me, or I'm working upstairs and they're downstairs watching a movie or playing. But I will say that I didn't have a ton of help, and especially because I went through COVID era with young kids. Kids are over programmed and over stimulated as it is. Like, one of the things I just did was like, you're bored? Great, go figure something out. Go find something to play with. And I worked like I worked with a child psychologist for a bit just to understand like different tools I could have in my toolkit as a single mom. And she was just like, set a timer, let them be bored for 30 minutes, and you will be blown away with what they start doing in like minute 21, 22. They may whine and complain, I'm bored. Don't give them stimulus. See what happens. And I'll like go downstairs and like all of a sudden my living room's been turned into like a vet clinic, and like all the stuffed animals are lined up ready to get their vaccinations or whatever. And it's like, oh, they don't need to be stimulated all the time. And actually it's been an amazing thing. So I kind of just embrace boredom and see what happens. That's number one. Number two, I have a couple of sanity taxes. Like for sure, the thing that like I refuse to do is laundry. I just think it's the worst use of my time. Folding it, putting it away, figuring out, is this a size 6 versus a size 8? Because my kids are all the same ages, and it's just so much time. So that's the one thing that I'm like, it takes me so long to do 3 kids worth of laundry and their sheets and all this stuff. So once a week, somebody comes, spends the like 6 hours, like I'm not kidding. It's like 6 hours of nonstop like laundry to do 4 adults or 4 people's laundry in their beds and stuff. I'm like, that is the best use of my money. Okay, I will pay you whatever it's, I think it's like $250 a week. Yes, that's expensive, but like for 6 hours, I charge so much more than $250 for an hour of time. So it's like, that is my sanity tax. That one I'm okay with.
So it's basically the same kind of approach to think through like what of the activities are really giving you something back. Because oftentimes I find this, I like the advice, especially as a woman. Oftentimes you kind of just like end up doing things and doing things and doing things, and like the end, like the list never ends, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm so dead, I'm just gonna drop in my bed now. But I also agree with you that Naval's advice is kind of very limited in a way that, yeah, of course I can think that way, and then if I approach it from an abundance mindset, like I'll figure ways out how to make money. So like it still counts, I think, to a degree. But I really like that you pick the parts that you really want to outsource, also based on like just what you'd like and dislike. And I think many of the kind of to-dos or chores type of things, like for some people are really meaningful. They like them for whatever reason. So I think in that sense, it's really good to select. Wow, time flies. I just wanted to thank you, but not only that, I mean, we've spoken with each other a few times now over the course of the past, I don't know, maybe 2.5 years or so. And I've never seen you so clear. And I felt like I've been watching a movie or listening to a podcast. It is full of nuggets. And like, I feel like I haven't done anything. I haven't lived up to my moderation task here, just because you were kind of, you know, like shining this whole time and sharing so many insights, but in such an authentic way that I just wanted to feedback back to you that I think it's definitely from my super unsolicited opinion.
That's so wonderful to hear. Writing is such a powerful tool. Like writing every day, like that whole Artist Way morning pages, if anybody knows what that is, but like being forced to write every single day has allowed me to like clarify things. So thank you for mirroring that back. That means a lot.
Gladly. And thank you everyone for joining, submitting questions beforehand, and being here and listening. I was observing faces a little bit throughout. I hope you got lots of nuggets out of this. We will, of course, summarize it as per usual and share it with everyone in the community. For those of you that are staying for the peer coaching, please hang out for 2-3 more minutes. But Amanda, huge thanks and all the best. Good luck. I'm really curious to see the big things you're going to be doing the next month. So thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. And I'm on Twitter if anybody needs me. My DMs are open. So here to help. All right. Bye guys.